on the morning of July 1st, 2018, at 9:20 a.m. in the south of Paris. A fortified prison loomed like an impenetrable fortress, the most modern and secure detention center in France. Towering concrete walls, weighing 17 tons each, stood high, surrounded by sharp barbed wire and impenetrable armored steel doors. The courtyard was covered with anti-helicopter nets, while 4 watchtowers stood tall, each manned by snipers always at the ready, gripping their assault rifles. This was not a place for ordinary criminals. In solitary confinement cell number 207, prisoner 0010189 sat quietly, waiting. He was the most heavily guarded inmate in the country, a notorious criminal responsible for over 30 robberies, ranging from daring hostage situations to an armored truck heist that resulted in the death of a police officer. Twice, he had escaped police custody right at the crime scene, vanishing like a ghost into the mist. 5 years earlier, in 2013, he had pulled off a spectacular prison break from another facility, using guns and explosives to carve his own path to freedom. Today, 2 guards opened the cell door to check on him before escorting him to the visitation room. They searched him and found only a pack of chewing gum, nothing suspicious. Despite his terrifying criminal record, he had a friendly, humorous, even likable demeanor. The guards liked him, as if he were born to live behind bars, perfectly at ease in confinement. But behind that smile was a mind quietly calculating. 20 meters away, Stefan B., a 65-year-old pilot with silver hair, was welcoming 2 new trainees, Frederick and Julian, a father and son. They were excited about their first flight, but had no interest in piloting themselves. They simply wanted to sit inside the Alet II, a classic aircraft from the 1950s, as elegant as a prized collectible. They admired it, marveling at its sleek exterior. Stefan felt a flicker of doubt. Something seemed off. Later, he would recall thinking they might have been wearing wigs, but he shrugged it off. Money was money, and they had already paid 500 euros in cash. Back at the prison, the inmate was escorted to the high-security visitation area, reserved for the most dangerous criminals. It was located at the farthest corner of the facility, hundreds of meters from the main gate. Prison authorities were on edge. Recently, he had been receiving more visits, and his phone calls seemed to contain coded messages. His friendliness toward the guards might just be a facade to extract information. A few days ago, a mysterious drone had been spotted hovering in the sky, surveying the prison from above. In the open field, Stefan landed the helicopter in a desolate clearing following the request of his 2 students. They claimed they needed a quick stop to take care of something. Disappearing behind the bushes, they were gone for a moment. When they returned, both were armed. Frederick's voice was icy cold.
"We know where you live. We've been watching you for months. Our men are already there. If you don't do exactly as we say, your family dies."
Stefan trembled, forced to comply. They ordered him to take off and fly to the next destination. Visitation room 50. The inmate's older brother sat waiting, unaware that his sibling was about to make history with the most daring prison break in France. The prisoner, Rédoine Faïd, remained calm, as if he were simply waiting for a bus. He was the most infamous man in the country, a robber, a best-selling author, a film fanatic, and an adrenaline junkie. To many in the immigrant suburbs, he was a living legend. But to truly understand this man, we must go back in time. 1978, suburbs of Paris. 6-year-old Rédoine Faïd walked into a newly opened store with his older brother, 2 years his senior. Their family were poor Algerian immigrants. Their father worked in a factory, their mother cleaned houses, and 11 siblings crammed into a tiny 3-room apartment. Around them were wealthy neighborhoods, where local French kids saw them as outsiders. A store security guard sneered, calling them petit merdeux, a derogatory insult. But he wasn't paying attention. By the time the 2 boys left, their pockets were full. The first theft of Rédoine's life. A few weeks later, he was caught. His father was furious, lashing him 20 times with a belt. His mother made him swear never to steal again. But that promise didn't last long. Cinema had already taken hold of his mind. French crime films and American gangster movies became his Bible. He watched them over and over, memorizing every line, acting them out for his family. By his teenage years, stealing wasn't just a means of survival, it was a way of life. He and his friends stole TVs, sound systems, VCRs, car radios, and computers, using the money to buy Adidas sneakers and stylish sportswear. But most of all, they spent it on movies, watching them again and again. 18 years old, the first bank heist. Rédoine walked into the bank, gun in hand. Staring coldly at the teller, he delivered a line straight from a French crime film.
Shut up and do as I say. I have nothing against you. I just want the money. Think about your kids.
After that, he calmly returned to school to study for his final exams. There was no one left to hold him back. His father had returned to Algeria, and his mother was slowly dying of leukemia. In his later autobiography, he wrote, "From that moment on, I just didn't care anymore." The crimes escalate. Inspired by American action films, Rédoine and his gang wore rubber masks of famous politicians, just like in Point Break. As they fled the scene, he even quoted a movie line, "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget to vote." In another heist, they kidnapped a target while dressed in sleek black suits, calling each other by color-coded nicknames, Mr. White, Mr. Yellow, Mr. Blue, just like in Reservoir Dogs. But that time, things went wrong. The job failed, and Rédoine was forced to flee the police, just like in the movies. The ultimate heist, armored truck robbery. Still not satisfied, Rédoine set his sights on the holy grail of robberies, armored cash trucks. Inspired by Michael Mann's Heat, he executed the plan with cinematic precision. Driving full speed, he rammed a 6-ton armored truck, blocking its path with 2 other vehicles. 5 men in hockey masks armed with AK-47s surrounded their prey. A pack of explosives shattered the windshield, forcing the guards to surrender. But the money was too much to move quickly. The operation dragged on. The police arrived within 3 minutes. Gunfire erupted. Rédoine took a bullet to the shoulder, but managed to escape, leaving behind a trail of blood. That single drop of DNA led the police straight to his identity. Back to the escape day. Out in the field, Stefan was forced to take off again under the watchful eyes of his captors. They carried a black duffel bag filled with smoke grenades, tear gas, masks, AK-47s, and an angle grinder. The old helicopter roared toward the prison, where Rédoine sat, chatting casually with his brother, unaware that his most daring escape was just moments away. 11:18 a.m., the sound of escape. A strange whirring noise echoed outside. The guards dismissed it as a leaf blower, but it was Sunday. No gardeners were working. Then the emergency alarm blared. From the watchtower, HKG-36 rifles were drawn, aimed at the incoming helicopter. But this wasn't just any aircraft. It was the small Alet 2, nimble enough to slip through an uncovered gap in the prison's anti-helicopter net. A blind spot no one had ever anticipated. 2 masked men leaped out of the helicopter. One fired up an angle grinder, its sparks slicing through the steel door. The other tossed smoke grenades. Thick white fog swallowed the prison yard. The screech of metal grinding drowned out all other sounds. Rédoine knew it was time. He bolted from the visitation room, sprinting down the hallway with his accomplices, leaving his stunned brother behind. 11, Rédoine strode into the prison yard, casually saluting 2 inmates taking out the trash. Then, without hesitation, he climbed into the helicopter. As the rotors roared to life, a wave of cheers and applause erupted from the prison cells. He had done it. A Hollywood-style prison break brought to life. News of Rédoine Faïd spread worldwide. He was already a TV star, a best-selling author. Now he had earned the title of France's greatest escape artist. Meanwhile, the police had their own statement. He was now the most wanted man in the country. Three months later, Rédoine Faïd was captured in his hometown, disguised under a burqa. In 2020, at a high-security trial, he was sentenced to 39 years in prison, convicted as the mastermind behind a police officer's murder and 2 daring prison escapes. He admitted to being addicted to adrenaline, calling himself a sick man. His Hollywood-style heists had shaken the world, but they had also left behind pain, trauma, and the tragic death of a 26-year-old female officer. Now, in solitary confinement, searched 5 times a day, his hands always shackled, Rédoine Faïd describes his existence as being buried alive. His earliest possible release? The year 2060. By then, he'll be 88 years old, if he lives that long.